There we go. All right, everyone, we're here. We're reading God is Red, A Native View of Religion by Vine Deloria Jr. I don't do enough Native American stuff, so I'm going to be reading this for the next 2 weeks in my video reads. And we're going to go back to Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday. I'm going to start with chapter 2, and I'm reading this with you. Chapter 2, the Indians of the American Imagination. Because I think it's very important that we understand that the overwhelming majority, I would say 95 to 99% of this society is delusional, completely delusional, or goes in and out of delusion. Most people are just completely delusional, have no idea of what concepts are being acted out, or don't even really care, completely satisfied with mundane tasks that they call life. And in the modern world with modern tech, where we can do all the things that we really want to do, why would you be satisfied with the mundane? The mundane we have to do, but that shouldn't be the end. You know, it's weird. But the Indians of the American Imagination, that's the chapter we're going to read it in. Let's get into it. Let me get some water. I'm tired already. I didn't even start reading. I get these juices, and I keep the bottles, glass bottles. Try to get things in glass bottles so I can keep them. Glass is much better than plastic. Reuse them, recycle. Until the occupation of Wounded Knee, American Indians were stereotyped in literature and by the media. They were either a villainous, warlike group that lurked in the darkness, thirsting for the blood of innocent innocent settlers, really, or the calm, wise, dignified elder sitting on the mesa, dispensing his wisdom in poetic aphorisms. Strangely, the malevolent image can be attributed to the movie caricature, while the benign image comes from anthologies, pageants, and fervent wish by non Indians to establish some personal sense of the Jungian authentication. As the civil rights movement began to be eclipsed by the anti war protests and Martin Luther King Jr. linked Vietnam with the American domestic problem, the, the public began to turn to other minorities for the reassurance that they were, in spite of themselves, good guys. See, this is why I like to read. You read books and they tell you about other subjects. Most blacks will never tell you that people turned on Martin Luther King Jr. The same people who praise him and his family that's still around, they turned on him. But this book tells you they turned. American Indians were a natural choice for public attention. Their protests had so far taken place in remote areas of the country. They wanted to be left alone. Excuse me. They wanted to be left alone. They would not be purchasing home in one's neighborhood, and they were a very colorful part of America's past, isolated from modern problems. With a growing interest in America's history and a heightened visibility on American Indians in 1967, the publishing industry made a deliberate effort to feature Indian books. A year later, Stan Steiner's The New Indians described the recent exploits of younger Indians, leading the way in the 1960s. Many of the Indians appearing in Steiner's book were sought out by publishers and contracts were given out freely. The publication of Custard Die for Your Sins helped focus the anger of young Indians on specific targets, such as anthropologists, the BIA, and the Christian churches. A year later, Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee by D. Brown, a well written accounting of the Indian Wars, presented another dimension of the American Indian experience to the reading public. I have Custodophy of Sin somewhere around here. I gotta find it. I'm trying to get to Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee, but it's hard to find. And I don't get enough support to buy books, so I have to, use the library. These books stand out in the literature about the American Indian because the rest of the field is so easily classified and deals primarily with a fantasy image of Indians, the kind of Indians that many groups of Americans would like to believe exist. The Indians occupying Wounded Knee knew they could benefit from the publicity that the book had already achieved, insofar as they believed that the existing literature of Indians would provide people with additional background to help explain their struggles. They were sorely disappointed. A review of the literature available on American Indians during the years when the activist movement was so predominant indicates the tremendous conceptual barrier they were facing. With the exception of N. Scott Momaday's Pulitzer Prize-winning novel Housemaid of Dawn and Hal Borland's When the Legends Die, Stay Away, Joe, there have been few successful novels about modern Indian life. Little Big Man, Thomas Berger's very successful novel on the Old West, covers Indian life and culture obliquely, and its time period could hardly be said to relate to contemporary Indian life. Many novels have not even had the success of Little Big Man. In attempting to present in fictional format Indian life as it was experienced in the last century, most novels have fallen into a go in peace, my son style, with the credibility of the plot dependent on the lonely white trapper, gunfighter, or missionary who comes across the Indian princess. The parallel between the unexpected and fortunate event in the Horatio Alger stories that catapults the hard-working hero to fame and the fortune salvation event that makes the Indian tribe accept the white hero in the Indian novel is no mistake. It is virtually impossible to change the cultures of economic status without what would appear to be an almost supernatural intervention. The same thing they do to us. That was, remember all the movies about the white teacher coming into the hood? There was always versions of that. Or there's the motif of the magic Negro, right? So there's actually a movie coming out about magic Negroes. These people have magic powers, and they spend all their time just making white folks happy. And one turns. And the one that turns is a mixed race one. So, and it's what happens when you try to live your life to be happy at the expense of the white. Because there's a white guy that he works with, he's supposed to keep happy and help him to get the girl. But he likes the girl and the girl likes him or the woman. So, and again, he gets in kind of trouble with the League of the Magic Negroes and all of that. But so I'm gonna go see that movie, you know that. And these are the kind of cartoonish things that they do to anybody who's not white. Until you become white, then you can be complex. By the way, every Spanish-speaking person who comes here is a foreigner, but their children who are born here are white. A sociology professor told me that 30 years ago. So that's how the white numbers are high. And the Latino community of Spanish speakers, they're quite happy to become part of the white family. All kinds of perks come with that. How much time? Okay, we can read it. Where other fields of literature have so successfully enabled people to empathize with conditions and cultural variances, novels about Indians have been notably bereft of the ability to invoke sympathy. Rather, they have been dependent on an escapist attitude for their popularity. As a consequence, the Indian activist movement could not make contact with a group of informed, sympathetic readers, for there were none. There is no emotional unconscious that the Indians and non Indians share that can be tapped on behalf of American Indians, insofar as they are people, like other people. Their sufferings are historic and communal. This is the lesson that America has learned from its literature and Indians. The communal nature of Indian personal existence is further supported by the presence of a large body of literature on the histories of the respective tribes. For generations, it has been traditional that all historical literature on Indians be a recital of tribal histories, from the pre discovery culture through the first encounter with the whites to about the year 1890. At that point, the tribe seems to fade gently into history, with its famous war chief riding down the canyon into the sunset. Individuals appear within this story only to the extent that they appear to personalize the fortunes of the tribe. A mythical Hiawatha, a saddened Chief Joseph, a scowling Sitting Bull, a sullen Geronimo, all symbolize not living people, but the historic fate of a nation overwhelmed by the inevitability of history. Genocide is what it got overwhelmed with. That's what it was. I mean, it's rough. And the one thing that the natives always showed me is genocide doesn't necessarily mean all of your people completely disappear. Although, if you go to a lot of reses, a lot of them look white. I've seen some natives that oh man, they used to do a thing in Brooklyn at the Aviator, and they used to come and the natives would come and have their powwow. And the people doing the powwow and doing the dances and the cultural stuff were color. But then when you go to the vending spot, all the people behind the desk were white. And I was like, or at least white as far as skin complexion. I was like, kind of nonsense is this? But colorism, but it's a thing. Some of the earliest Indian protests challenged this image of Indians and the numerous false stereotypes projected by this type of literature. Since sincere but uninformed whites honestly asked Indians during the height of the activist movement if we still lived in tents, if we were allowed to leave the reservations, and other relevant questions, indicating that for a substantial number of Americans, we were still shooting at the Union Pacific on our days off. On one memorable evening as a guest of the Bill Barker show in Denver, I was asked by a radio listener how the Indians celebrated Christmas before the coming of the whites. Bill and I broke out laughing, and he had to punch in a commercial so I could compose myself before trying to answer this silly question. There were constant protests directed to whites writing books on tribes to include something about modern Indians in their books. The result of this protest was that several writers of books on Indians added a final chapter in which a quick sketch of the contemporary condition of the tribe was reviewed. So that's why it's so important that we write our own stories and books from the ground. That's why I do a lot of writing and self-publishing on multiple platforms. And I'm writing, a lot of my writing now is about the homeless situation because I was in it. I want it to be noted what it's actually like. Of course, as a black man, the black experience, but the human experience. So, and trying to expand in a psychologically regressive society. So, although this everything in this society is meant for you to be savage, and I write a lot about trying to live as a being moving toward what they call greater mind or even greater mind. And so, I want that to be noted. And then trying to do that in this body is damn near impossible. And it's cost me everything to try to do it. Family relationships, marriage, everything to try to do it. But the alternative is to be less, being maybe more human. But who wants to be more human? Who wants to be more destructive, more I won't say animalistic because I don't think it's that. Because to be honest with you, I think, matter of fact, I know most primates, the bonobos, gorillas, chimps, if you look at them, they are functioning on a higher level of consciousness than most human beings. They really are. So I don't know really what to call us. I've been struggling over the last 5 to 10 years to figure out, well, especially the last 3 years since 2020, what are we? Like, what do you call maybe Homo sapiens, I guess? What do you call them? And what do you call the rest of us who are evolving? Is there another name? It's got to be another name because the differences is so stark. I mean, I know human beings are always evolving, and usually you can see, okay, we're still human, but the difference now between those of us who are conscious and everybody else, it's a big gap. It's a really big gap. We look alike, we sound alike, we may even know some of the same things, but the way we function is very, very different. So I've been saying we're beings. We're all human beings, but we're more being than human. Other people are more human than being. I don't know. Maybe I could call us something else. Sentient as opposed to Homo sapien. I don't know. But tell me what you think. Tell me what you think we should be called and what you think we are and the differences. Or is there a difference? Am I wrong? Love to hear it. Of course, I don't have to tell you to put it. If you think I'm wrong, you're going to do that. That's always in the comments. But do it. Let's see. Let's try. Because I can't figure out. I'm trying to find a term or concept. So maybe you know it and can help me with it. Until next time, remember, you can support the platforms by clicking the links given directly or becoming a sponsor. Till next time, be safe and take care of yourself.